So, of all the films and TV shows that you made with Universal, how much time did you spend here on the Universal lot?
Oh, I practically moved in.
Practically moved
Yeah, I
in.
practically moved in because your calls are very early, and you work late. So yeah, it became a home for me.
What was it like being on the lot originally? I mean, I assume things have changed dramatically
Oh
since the
yeah,
first
they
time.
have changed dramatically. In fact, yesterday I thought, gee, I'd like to drive by and see where my dressing room was, and see if it's still there. And I didn't arrange the time correctly, you know. so I didn't have an opportunity to do that. But maybe on the way out. But it was a really wonderful dressing room, and I had my own makeup room and shower. It was all done in French blue, and the French furniture, and I spoiled. Yeah, it's good to be spoiled.
Have you been on the studio tour recently?
No, I haven't. I should do
go.
that.
Yeah, you should go.
Yeah, let's do that. Yes, I think that's a very good idea.
So your first trip to Universal Studios, was it for the casting of The Birds?
Yes. Yes, it was.
How did that come about? What was the road to being cast in The Birds?
Well, actually, the how I got here was this person stopped me, and no, I received a phone call. That's what it was. A phone call saying, "Are you the girl in the Seago commercial? You know, the Seago pet milk, pet milk product. It's a diet drink." Yeah, and I had been doing a number of commercials, which was absolutely great because they pay so well, and that's what we're all basically after anyway. I was doing one commercial after the other, and it happened. All the commercials came in just about the end of my modeling career with Eileen Ford in New York, and I had been modeling for about 8 or so years, and that's a long time. And it was kind of dwindling, and I have my little girl, Melanie Griffith. I was thinking, oh dear, what am I going to do? So we packed up Melanie and I packed up our little dog and our cat and our bunny, and we all moved back to Los Angeles. And I'm thinking, oh, what am I going to do? I don't type. What am I going to do? And all of a sudden, I got this call, "Are you the girl in the Seago commercial?" And I said, "Yes, why?" They said, "Well, there's a producer who is interested in you." I said, "Oh, who?" They said, "Well, come down to the studio and we'll talk about it." And that's how that whole thing happened.
You grew up in Minnesota, correct?
I did.
What was the transition? When did you know you wanted to get into modeling and doing commercials?
I got off the streetcar, and coming home from high school one day, I had to take the streetcar into school. And I got off the streetcar, and this woman came toward me, and she handed me her card. And she said, "Would you ask your mother to bring you down to Donaldson's department store? We'd like to have you model in our Saturday morning fashion shows." So, bingo. That's how it all started. It was fabulous.
And a lot of people may not know, your name is Natalie.
Nathalie.
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 Yes, and I married a Griffith, so I was Nathalie Griffith. I never went by Nathalie, and in fact, if anybody had said Nathalie, I would have never have even, blinked an eye.
Where did Tippi come from?
My father was Swedish, and he thought Nathalie was a little much, too. I think that was my mother's idea. Nathalie K. Hedren. So he started calling me Tupsa, which is a Swedish term of endearment. And from Tupsa, it went to Tips and then to Tippi.
Was getting into modeling, was acting ever the end goal? Were you ever aspiring to be an actress?
No.
No. How did that come about that you fell into acting?
Well, the Hitchcock thing, it was just an amazing time. It really was. I mean, that's when the person came and said, we have to get you over to meet Mr. Hitchcock.
And when you came here, you didn't know who you were going to meet with?
No, I didn't.
What was, I mean, that alone is just, he is the master of suspense, really.
Oh,
not knowing who you're going to meet.
And I think that was sort of a fun thing for him to do, too.
But what was the experience for you not knowing who you're coming here to meet? You've got this contract you've got to sign, and you don't even know what the conversation's going to be.
Absolutely. No, it was really, I'd like to go through that again, though, because it really was fun and interesting and exciting. And, of course, when I heard it was Alfred Hitchcock, I mean, it's just mind-blowing.
What was that first meeting with him like?
A little bit awesome, a little scary. And he sat there just looking very pleased with himself, and we talked about the weather, and we talked about, we didn't even get close to talking about movies. It was just a very kind of simple conversation, and it was, but it was just amazing because he was, you know how he was on his television shows, the introductions and all of that. He was very similar to that. Yeah.
When the conversation comes up to star in this film, do you have any anticipation for the physical brutality you would have to go through in filming these sequences where birds are literally attacking you?
I didn't have a clue. No, I didn't, and we didn't have the capabilities of making movies that we do today, and we used real birds. Yeah. I became very, very friendly with a raven, though. His name was Buddy, and he was a great, he was a big raven, and he was shiny and beautiful. And Ray Berwick, who was the bird trainer, was so kind to all of the birds, and so I was really happy to see that he cared so much about the birds. And he would tell Hitchcock, he said, the birds are tired, they have to rest and stop filming, and that's what would happen. But he introduced me to Buddy, and Buddy got to know where my dressing room was, and he'd come over, and he'd hop up into my dressing room on the, because they're kind of little long boxes, that are on the set, and he'd come up and he'd jump up on my dressing table and play with all the makeup, and then he'd sit on my shoulder, and then he'd sit on my head, and he really was my buddy. It was just a great relationship. I missed him a lot when the film was over. I really did. Is
Buddy the bird that was holding the match lighting your cigarette?
Yes.
I love that photo.
Boy, that's my favorite picture. Oh, I'm sorry that was even taken, because that was just wrong. Just plain wrong.
And I hope I don't misquote him, but I believe Kari Grant called you the bravest woman he's ever known.
He did call me that.
Isn't that cool?
Yes. Yeah, now I play with lions and tigers, so I'm proving it.
What was the origin of that comment? What prompted him to say that?
Just because of working with the birds and having the all of them so close, and they weren't little tiny birds. They were big birds and with good sized claws, and but I was never hurt, never.
Was there ever a moment that you felt overwhelmed with, being, especially when you're in that scene in the attic, just being surrounded by live birds pecking at you?
No, but I got really tired.
Yeah.
I really got tired, and Especially when at the end of it, where they had me lying on the ground and the birds were attached to me, and the one that was up here, they were all on elastic, so they could move around and jump, but not leave my body. And the one that was up here jumped and got me really too close. The claw went too close to my eye, and I got all of them off of me with one swoop. I just got them off. But it was, I liked the birds, and I, had a good time with them. I really liked them.
Once that film was released and it, terrified everyone. What was that like for you, going from, being in a commercial to all of a sudden you're in a Universal Hitchcock movie, the star of the film? What was that transition like for you just in life?
It was life-changing. Really was, because it was a whole different kind of thing, and the whole business was so different than I was certainly used to the photographs and doing that, but to be in a film and then to be directed by a man as powerful and knowledgeable about films as Alfred Hitchcock was just amazing. I just felt so fortunate in having that education. Really was stunning.
And then you would go on to do another film for him, Marnie, alongside James Bond himself.
Yes, indeed.
What was it like working alongside Sean Connery?
Oh, it was fabulous. But I had to do when Hitch was looking for the Mark Rutland character. He was going through all the different actors in New York and everywhere to try to find the right actor. And he couldn't find anybody. And finally one day he said, "I've got your Mark Rutland." And I said, who is that? He said, Sean Connery. And I went, Sean Connery? Mr. Hitchcock, in this movie, I'm supposed to be a frigid woman who screams if a man comes near her. How am I, Sean Connery, how am I supposed to do this? And he said, "It's called acting, my dear." And that was the end of that. So that's what I had to do, was act through that whole thing.
Were you a fan of motion pictures growing up, or getting into the movie business? Was it surreal being surrounded by celebrities? And by the way, she wrote a beautiful memoir, if you haven't read it yet, and she tells a story where she may or may not have met Marilyn Monroe. Have we decided if you have or have not met Marilyn Monroe?
I have met Marilyn Monroe, and but we never had a conversation. It was at a photographer's whose name was Milton Green, and it was in Connecticut. And I was in Connecticut for I had some friends who had a home there and would go up there often. And Milton Green had a home there as well. And he had a party in which Marilyn Monroe was at the house. And but she didn't show up. And finally she did, and she came down the stairs, which were at an angle, and she sat in the corner of the stairs and didn't move. I'm sorry, that's all I have to say.
You are the only actress in history, I believe, to have been directed by both Alfred Hitchcock and Charles Chaplin.
I believe so.
And appearing in his final film, what was that experience like, working alongside Marlon Brando and being directed by Charles Chaplin?
Well, the fun thing about being directed by Charlie Chaplin was that his modus operandi in directing was to act out all of our roles. And then he'd say, "And now you do it." And which was fine. I thought it was awesome. just to watch this magic being performed in front of us. Marlon wanted to quit. I mean, he really didn't appreciate this method of direction at all. I mean, and he was really almost really vehement about it. And of course, he couldn't quit because he was under contract, so he just had to suffer through it. But it was fabulous because Charlie would get out onto the set and he would become my character. He would become Sophia's character, Marlon's character, and it just changing like that. And it was fabulous to watch him. Absolutely, I loved that whole thing.
And that's A Countess from Hong Kong,
Yes.
is that movie. Also starring Sophia Loren, who you became close with on that film, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me about some of the films, very important, but you did some very important work going to Vietnam during your career. Tell us about that, how that trip turned out for you.
Yeah, my mother was always kind of involved with church work and that sort of thing, and you know, doing things for other people that were having a tough time, and I kind of did that as well. And at one point, oh gosh, I was asked to go. Where was it? Something. It was called Food for the Hungry, and thank you. It was an organization called Food for the Hungry, and they were on their way going to help somebody, a people that had been. I think it was a hurricane that had destroyed their area or whatever it was, and. So they asked if I would become part of Food for the Hungry, and I liked that idea a lot, and spent several years traveling around the world with them to various places that had been sort of really in bad shape just because of war, weather, whatever.
And you mentioned in your memoir about the Vietnamese refugees being the strongest group of women you had ever met.
I think they are, too. I still think that. And because what Food for the Hungry did was we had a place in Weimar, outside of Weimar, California, and it was an abandoned tuberculosis sanitarium. And so there were these big buildings, all with bedrooms and baths and a perfect place for them to reside until they could find their way in the United States. And I went up there and met with these women, and because we were trying to figure out how can we assimilate them into our communities, and with a job and all of that. So. They really, all of them, were fascinated with my fingernails, which were longer than they are now, and I think I had red, some kind of wonderful red on them. Anyway, they were fascinated with my fingernails, and after a few days of them talking about my fingernails, I thought, okay, I'm going to bring my manicurist in and see if any of them would like to become manicurists. So that's how that whole Vietnamese manicure thing started. And I'm going, yes, I did it! Yay! And they're still my friends, and you know, we meet every now and then, and it's really wonderful.
What an incredible thing to look back and see unfold.
Yes, it was, and to know these women and to know how strong they were, and how they so wanted to not be a burden on the United States. None of them wanted to be a burden. They all wanted to work. They wanted to, you know, assimilate into our society, and it was an amazing time.
Other amazing work that you have done and are currently doing with Shambhala, Did that start with the filming of Satan's Harvest? Which sounds like a pretty metal picture, right? Satan's Harvest. Is that when you first fell in love with the animals?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. But it was after my then husband and I had been to Africa, and I did 2 films in Africa, and just got to really, it was so thrilling to see the animals in their natural habitat, and how powerful that is. Have any of you been to Africa? Have you had that enjoyment? It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Yeah. We were in South Africa, and it was just an awesome time, and to see those animals just running free and not in cages where most of us, it's the only time we get to see them, But anyway, my then husband and I decided to do a movie about the animals in the wild and the problems they have out there, and we chose the great cats to be our movie stars. Well, we're dealing with apex predators here, folks. So we contacted several trainers and who had lion and tiger and that they would use for movies, but they wouldn't let their cat work with a cat it didn't know because they'd kill each other. So it became evident to us that we'd have to acquire our own animals to do the movie. Well, that's a romantic notion, isn't it? But that is what we did, and the first little young lion was about 4 or 5 months old, and so he came to live with us in our house in Sherman Oaks. And we got to know that little lion, and he just kind of took over the whole house, and they are a one-man demolition crew. And he'd walk by the couch and just take a bite out of it. I became an expert reupholsterer, because it was too expensive to go out and keep going out and buying furniture. And then another little lioness came to live with us, and so we got the male and the female and the differences and how unique each one is. And it was, at one point we had 7 little lions and tigers. Well, and so they grow like you're blowing up a balloon. And one of the little lions looked over the fence, which looked down on the neighbor, but the neighbor looked up and said, "That's a lion." And so next day, pounding on the door, animal control, said, "Well, I hear you've got some lions here." And I said, "Oh, just a minute." And I ran it. I got the littlest one. I could barely hold him. And he said, "Well, you've got 24 hours to get him off the property." So we did that for a while. We got him off the property for a while. But then it got to the point where they were of an age that we couldn't keep them at the house anymore in Sherman Oaks. So one of the... Oh, I've had such a fun life. God. So we knew the place that these little cubs were coming from. So we said, well, we're going to now board them with you. And then, of course, the more that we acquired, it eventually became more than the board bill. So we bought the place. And that's now where I live. In Acton, yeah. And it's beautiful, and I hope you'll all come and visit and see the lions and tigers. And, all the time that we were rescuing these animals, I was wondering, why doesn't our government have laws against the breeding and the selling of these animals to anyone who has the money as a pet? They're apex predators, top of the food chain, one of 4 of the most dangerous animals in the world, and our government wasn't doing anything. There were a few state laws. You'd have to have a permit to have it on your residence. but there was no real control about it. So I put a bill together, and it was quick, easy, to the point. And I took it to Buck McKeon, who was my congressman at that time, and he said, "Tippi, you're dealing with a huge business. It's gigantic. You'll never get this passed." And I said, "Well, we're going to try, aren't we?" And he joined me in this effort, and I eventually went to Washington and testified, and I didn't pull any punches about these animals and the danger that they hold, and how awful it is for them as well to live in some little tiny cage, because not many people have the facility that we do at Shambhala to have them in big areas, and so anyway, that bill was passed unanimously in the House and Senate, and President Bush signed it on December 3rd of, I think it was 2003. Yeah. So
You really
it was a
are.
good thing.
You really are the strongest woman in Hollywood. Yeah.
Oh, I think so. Definitely. Modest, too.
And speaking of strength, my God, did you ever feel on the set of Roar like one day you're going to wake up and end up being lunch?
No, I knew I was. No, it's amazing that we lived through that nobody was killed. It really was amazing. One of my friends here, Bill Dow, who is our staff photographer, stayed on to be our photographer, is here. He's here. He could tell some stories, too. He ended up in the hospital at one point. Yeah, I did, too. Yeah. But it was, and it was amazing that nobody was hurt, really badly or even killed, because they were, we had so many. And then, of course, the fact that we were taking in these animals, there were so many people that had them, bought them as these adorable, darling little cubs, and then what do you do when it's tearing up your house and taking a good chunk out of your child, So we were taking in a lot of animals. At one point, we had close to 100. And that's when I really thought, I've got to get this bill passed. I've got to get it passed to stop it. And it, now we're down to 30 cats, and we haven't had anybody calling and saying, "Can you take my lion? Can you take my tiger?"
And you're being literal, too, when you say take a chunk out of your child. Melanie Griffith was injured. Was it true 70 cast and crew members were injured on that movie?
Oh, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody lived, That's a strong point.
Something I like that you wrote in your memoir, though, is that the one thing that you never discussed while producing Roar was scrapping the project.
Never.
What kept it? Was it the message? Was the message of preservation? What was it that kept you going through all those years?
Just a real determination to get it done, and it was kind of amazing because there were a lot of times when we'd run out of money, and there we were with all these animals to support, and they kept coming in, so it was, but it was great at the same time because we were doing a wonderful service in having this facility that people could bring this little monster that they'd purchased that was so cute and cuddly. That was all of a sudden tearing their house apart and taking a pretty good chunk out of the family. So it all worked, but I'm really glad that I wrote the book because I have been so fortunate in having one hell of a life. I've just had the best life ever. Been scared to death so many times, and I almost called the book The Open Door because I've had all of these doors that opened for me, and I would look through it, and say, do I want to do this or not? Some of them I slammed them shut, and some of them I walked through, and yeah, it's been a good life.
Since we're on the Universal lot, I have to ask you about Murder, She Wrote. We have to go to Cabot Cove. What was that like for you working with Angela Lansbury? I mean, I know it was one episode. Do you have fond memories of working on that show?
Oh, yes. Oh, she was just absolutely delightful. Absolutely delightful, yeah. I wish I had a copy of that, and I don't.
I watched it on YouTube.
Oh, did you? There's the answer.
There you go.
Of course. Yeah, we all have a copy.
I told you earlier that I didn't think you'd remember this, but the first time I ever met you was at a horror convention, and I came up ranting and raving to you about I Heart Huckabees. I remember sitting in the theater and seeing your name pop up on the screen and thinking, really? Oh my God. How did you get involved with David O. Russell and
Oh, and that was fun too, because he's fun.
That was a fun one.
Yeah, that was an amazing time. It was just really fun.
We also had John Landis here a couple weeks ago.
Oh, yes.
Tell me about working on Dream On. I can't believe that was the first time you worked in comedy.
It was.
What was your experience working on that
Well, I had
series?
so much fun because I didn't have any education in comedy or any of those things, so I was just kind of watching all the other actors and kind of trying to get some information that I could steal, and it was wonderful fun. It really was.
And what is it like for you now, having not only Melanie, who is an actress, but then your granddaughter, Dakota Johnson, watching her getting into film? What is that like for you, just seeing that through the generations? Are you hesitant to say no? Don't go into that.
I didn't encourage either one of them to get into the business. I thought, because I always felt that I wanted my children to do what they wanted to do, not to be influenced by me or what I did or what I would want them to do. I think that's something that your child should be able to choose freely, and about what they want out of their lives. And so that, all of those things are just been a big surprise to me. But they're both incredibly talented.
And I do think it's an incredibly important thing that you've done in being so outspoken about what happened with you with the films of Hitchcock. And I think that it's been something that's made women stronger. Working in the film industry, you've really made a difference.
Oh, thank you for saying that, because I really do believe that we have every right in the world to say no. And the earlier a young woman learns that and knows that there isn't anything that she has to do or should be talked into doing if she doesn't want to, if she's not interested. I mean, those things are so important. And yeah, that's...
What do you love most about acting?
Becoming somebody else, and trying to think the way that particular character is what they're doing, and but acting is an amazing career to have. I wish I could do more of it. Yeah. There aren't many roles, though, once you get older. Once you get old. I'm old. Yeah, I am. I am. I'm 87.
Wow.
I'm 87, and sometimes I can't believe it. I really can't believe it. And that's the way it's going to be for the rest of my life. I plan on staying that way.
Who has questions for Miss Hedren? Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Here you go. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. I know that you worked with the great Edith Head, the grand
Yes.
dame of costume designers, I was lucky enough to see the costume exhibition a couple of years ago with your iconic dress from the Birds. I would just love to hear you talk a little bit. I know that you had a great relationship with her, and obviously you know, look iconic in those films. Just tell us about that.
Yeah, well, Edith had we became very, very close friends, and which was not only wonderful just because of the clothes aspect, but because of her charm and her wit and just joie de vivre for life. I mean, she was really just an exceptionally, wonderfully fun, exciting woman to become friends with, and we, not only were together on the two films, but we saw each other socially, and we'd have lunch together, and just girl stuff, and it was a great honor to be a good friend to her and have her as a friend. It was just amazing.
Tell them about the dress form.
My dress form.
Edith made for you.
Oh yeah, of course. She had because because of the two films, I had a dress form that was made of my exact body measurements and all of that sort of thing, and that was given to me by her, and which I of course brought home and had it in my bedroom, and was absolutely wonderfully, sometimes I'd dress it, and I'd put scarves around it and jewelry, and it was really fun. And then came the little lions, and I came down our house. The bedrooms were on the. The house was built into the hill, and the bedrooms were on the lower floor, and I came down one day, and my little lions had almost killed that body, and it was torn and ripped, and the stuffing was coming out of places, and I just sat and cried. I just sat and cried. So one day I took all the stuffing and put it back in, and I took the needle and I sewed it all back up and put it away so the little lions couldn't play with it anymore. And I still have it. It's got all these little little sewing things, all over it. It's just,
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
I had a question. As you mentioned earlier tonight, you said that before your contract with the Birds, you hadn't really given acting much of a thought. And I was reading articles online that said that Hitchcock basically told you that he would walk you through the process of becoming an actor. And my question was, because I've also seen interviews with him where he has sort of exhibited kind of contempt for method actors and actors contributing their own ideas on set. So my question is, what was the Hitchcock introduction to acting like, and did you find it differed from what you learned later on in your career?
Yeah, his method of directing was just having conversations about the character, about the situation in which we would, the scene would be played, and it was all done. There wasn't any real solid direction. It was all kind of a thought process, and it was sort of magical, actually. Yeah, it was wonderful. Spoiled me though, real bad.
So, in like the sequences, I'm thinking of maybe like in Marnie, where you're coming out from stealing and your shoe is falling out of your pocket. In those sort of sequences, did you really have a sense on set what he was doing, or was it sort of a mystery? Like, what is he up to? How is this going to come together?
No, because the relationship I had with Hitchcock was we would talk about the characters, we'd talk about the film, about the story, about everything was discussed in depth. Yeah, it was he was amazing.
So what was the experience having been in there and then seeing it on film later?
Oh.
Were they equal? Were they?
Oh yeah, well I had the opportunity of seeing all the dailies and all of that. So and really as the film was put together, I was able to watch it, which was really part of my education in film. And what better teacher? Couldn't be better.
So you talk about how Hitchcock directed you on this end of the spectrum, and how Charlie Chaplin directed you almost completely oppositely on the other end of the spectrum, where he's like, let's do it this way, I'm going to show you how to do it. Do you have any other memorable directing experiences working with directors who were somewhere in between, or had another really extreme style that was just so different that you recall from your career?
Yeah, I don't really recall any other directors that had as much of an effect on me in their methods of directing than Hitchcock and Chaplin. And that's aiming pretty high to to find anybody better, or even any others like them. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. And I don't know of another actress who worked with both. I don't think there was. No.
You're it.
It's amazing. I'm it.
I saw Ruben's hand earlier.
Oh, yeah. I had a question. You were on one of my favorite shows of all time, The 4400.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, just...
Have you got any stories about that?
No, just that whole storyline itself was so fascinating that, that was wonderful to do. I love stories like that.
Do you prefer film versus television, one or the other?
Oh, I prefer film.
Film. Why is that?
I don't know, just because of the time that you can take, and it's just different. It's just totally different. I think. To me, it is. Yes.
Sorry again. Have you noticed a difference in the quality of film versus digital and working in the two different mediums? Do things move quicker now, or is there like less attention to detail?
Well, I think digital is a lot faster, but I like the film where you really take the time and put all the effort into each scene, and I like that better.
My favorite scene in The Birds is the attack where it's happening outside the house, and you just hear it all around you, and then it started pecking at the door and all of that. I was curious, since the sound effects weren't there when you were shooting the scene, how was that to film, reacting to something that you couldn't hear?
It's called acting.
I can say.
That's the best I can say. That's what it's called. It's just, they on occasion they'd try to make sounds that would get our attention or whatever, but mostly we were reacting to nothing, no sound at all.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Any chance of working with your daughter or granddaughter?
Well, I would love to do that. What we need is the script. We need a story. We need the money. Yeah.
First of all, thank you so much for being here, because this is an amazing experience for many of us.
Oh, thank you. Well, you have all been just delightful with all your questions and concern and all of that. I really appreciate being here. Thank you.
So my question for you is, with all the people that you've worked with, have you ever been starstruck? Have you ever been nervous around a specific...
I was starstruck with Sean Connery.
Yeah.
I was. I thought, oh my God, this man is just so handsome, so beautiful. How dare he be married? How could he have done that? Such a stupid thing to do.
I love the photo in your book of you taking the picture of him taking his jacket off. Looks like you're fangirling a little bit with him.
Yeah. It could have been a little of that. Yeah.
Jason, does everyone here know that she's the mayor of Universal City?
I was. Did you know that? Yeah, I was. I was mayor of Universal City.
Talk about that.
And I ran a very tight ship. I did. I was very, very concerned about everything, and actually, it was just nothing but fun. You know, just going to parties and yeah, it was great.
What did that entail, and
Nothing.
How did that?
It didn't entail anything except that I would be going to lunches and you know, the cocktail parties, and it had nothing to do with any kind of a real position of where I, you know, ran Universal City. But it really was fun, and I loved doing it.
Who approached you about that?
Hitchcock.
Hitchcock.
Yeah. Yes, it was he.
Well,
yeah.
Thank you for being such a wonderful mayor to us.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it tremendously.
So most of the serious questions I would have asked have been asked already, so I'm going to ask a silly one.
Okay.
Do you have any fun stories about that bird sequel?
Land's End, the birds too.
Oh, God, I forgot all about it. Forgot all about it.
I haven't seen it, but I just wanted to know if you had anything interesting to say about it.
No, I don't. No, in fact, I'll have to go watch it again and see if I could remember anything.
Have you seen Birdemic then? No?
Birdemic. Have you seen Birdemic?
No.
It was like a kitschy film that some LA guy did. Just wondering.
Kitschy bird
Oh, for
movie.
heaven's sake. Birdemic.
With regards to animal rights,
What?
do you have any, with animal rights, do you have any other projects planned, or like films, or any ways that we might be able to get involved?
No, with the films, no, but I would love to invite all of you to come to the Shambhala Preserve. And we have a handout for you so that it will remind you maybe to call and come. We're not open to the public. It's on a reservation basis. And we're open one weekend a month. And then we have the summer, the sunset safaris, which are quite lovely. And then the lions roar more too, you know, at night than they do at the daytime. And it's so hot.
Who's down for a field trip?
Hey, that would be wonderful. Wow, let's do it.
Have you been back to Bodega Bay recently?
I go back to Bodega Bay almost every year. Yeah, around Labor Day. I love going back there, and there's so many people who are visiting. I mean, it's a very popular place. So, and I sign autographs and just have a good time with everybody. It's nice.
See, yes.
You're a pretty confident woman. And I think it's remarkable that you made the transition sort of seamlessly. I know a lot of it had to do with opportunity when Hitchcock said, hey, come be in this movie. But have you always had that sort of chutzpah just to say, yep, I think I can do this? Or were there times when you thought, I can't be an actress, I don't know what that is? Or I can't be a model, I haven't done that yet.
You know what I found my strength when I was really young. I was a very, very shy little girl. I was scared. I mean, I was really a frightened little girl. I would. Did any of you bite your fingernails? Yeah. So, anyway, I remember exactly where I was. I was coming home from grade school. I must have been 7 years old. And I was walking up the hill, and in the middle of the hill, I thought, I'm not going to bite my fingernails anymore. Now, if any of you used to bite your fingernails, you know it was a bad habit, you could hardly not do it. And I think that was one of the most strengthening things that I ever did, because I said to myself, I'm not going to do that again, and I didn't. And that was very strengthening. You know, it was my little kind of coming into a different phase of my life completely, just by stopping and having the strength to stop it. Because I don't know if any of you bite your fingernails or did bite your fingernails. It's something that was just a constant thing.
And then you made history with your fingernails.
And then I made history with my fingernails.
Tell them about your smoking.
Oh, that's the one that, you know, and I hear all of these, these commercials on how we have the method to help you stop smoking. You know what stopped me from smoking? It was in the first time that they figured out that and had the scientific facts that smoking will kill you or make you very ill. You'll look older faster. That got me. I said, I'm not doing that. I said, I'm not going to do it anymore. And I didn't. I put the cigarette out and did not have another one. And yeah, no kidding, I am strong. But you know what? But you have to do it. You have to say, this is something that could make me look older faster, kill me, make me very sick. What's attractive about all that? Nothing. So anyway, if any of you smoke, just stop it. Just stop it.
Yes.
This probably won't be a very remarkable answer, but I'm just so curious about it, and I've never really been able to find an answer. But in the unfilmed ending of The Birds, if you read the script, when it references her attacks from the attic, it says it was an owl attack. Was there any point in pre-production where you remember where the attic attack scene was supposed to be an owl, and they made this swap over to a bunch of different birds?
I don't know. I never heard of the owl thing. Huh. I'll have to look into that. Wow.
Margot.
Yeah.
You had said you were 88?
87.
Sorry, don't want to.
Yeah, no, not yet.
What do you accredit to your youthfulness and your health? And is it something that you practice continuously even today?
I do. I practice it all the time. Just eating right. I watch my weight. I will not gain a pound without cutting back on my eating. I just refuse to do it.
Taste the food anyway.
I can't. No, but I have no sense of taste or smell. I had two accidents that affected my olfactory nerves. It was a severe whiplash and another fall that was very, very harmful to my. I can't drive because I have no movement. That's as far as I can turn my head, and to there. So I am limited in that. But that it took my sense of smell and taste away, which is a huge loss of every day. It's a huge loss, and it's dangerous. I have to eat things that other people eat. I had to have more fire things put in my house, so that the smoke detectors. It's a great loss. I can't enjoy a glass of champagne. I can't, I'm going to cry now.
Thanks, Margot.
Thanks, Margot.
I saw Mel's hand. Yes.
My name is Melanie, and when I saw the birds, I was about 5 or 6, and it was the first time I saw a film with my name in the character. So I was very invested, and I also grew up in the Bay Area, which it was shot, so I was so in tune. We saw it at a drive-in in an old-fashioned VW Bug, and my little chin was on the rest. And it was the scene where you're walking through looking for your neighbor, and it was very long hallway and very slow, and that just anticipation. And my father turned around and went, "Ha!" And I jumped and hit my head on the ceiling and just broke into tears. So to make it up to us, he took us on a field trip, and we went to the Bodega Bay. And I looked, and I'm like, but it didn't match. And that's what started my fascination with film. Learning about matte painting and composite shots and this and that. And I actually visited every Hitchcock location in the Bay Area. And as my friends here know, I do backlot walks on the tour, and I've never gotten over it. So I feel a connection because it all started with the birds. And I just wanted to thank you. And I have visited Shambhala.
Oh.
And we actually were dance partners. It was very, very hot, and you were trying to get people up to dance, and you grabbed me out of my lawn chair and started dancing. And that was just like a very surreal moment. So I'm sorry for the personal thing. It wasn't really a question. But my question is, that led up to that, what are your plans for Shambhala in the future?
The plans are to keep it open. The bill that fortunately was passed has made a huge effect on these animals being purchased and people breeding them to be sold as pets. So that is on its way, and there we actually do see a light at the end of the tunnel where people will not be buying predators to be a pet. And but as long as there is a lion or a tiger that needs a home, we will be there.
When I was there, you had 2 elephants. Are they gone?
Yeah, they lived out their lives with us, Timbo and Cora. And I have to say that those were the best years of my life with these animals. It was when they were alive, because they were just so amazing to it's an incredible thing to be a friend of an elephant. I mean, I wish I could explain how it feels, but to walk up to that gigantic being and hear that rumble, it's sort of like distant thunder, and it's it's not a purr, but it's a welcoming sound that they say to each other, and they would say it to the man who was taking care of them, Chris Galucci, who you will meet when you come out to the preserve. And there's a wonderful story about him. He was a Hell's Angel, and one day I was up at the roadside, and this great big black Harley came down the road with the man all dressed in black with a black beard and black hair, long hair, and I thought, oh, this is going to be interesting. And he said, I hear you're hiring, and I said, and what can you do? And he said, everything. And you know what? He was right. So we hired him, and he learned all about the animals. He learned all about the care that they need. He learned everything. It was just stunning. And I have now made him, he runs the place. Yeah, it's amazing. Stunning.
A question about that. So, what was the first animal that you brought in, and how does that work? Like, when you bring a cat or a dog, it's okay, but hi honey, I brought home a lion. How does that work?
Well, we were going to make this movie, and so we needed to have we needed to get to know what they were like. And so one of the trainers of these animals had a little lion, or he heard of one that, that needed a home. And so we took that little lion. And we named him Casey. And, very quickly found he was a one-man demolition crew. But that's how that all started. And, it got to the point where we bought the place that once they were too big to be in Sherman Oaks with us, we had to find a place for them. So that was the place that we eventually bought, and it is now the Shambhala Preserve.
But what did you have to do in Sherman Oaks to get did you have something built outside?
No, we were fenced in. And the little lions would come in at night. We'd bring them, have them come in. The most we had at one time were 4, but they were little. They were little, but they each one of them is a one-man demolition crew. They are determined to destroy your house and everything in it. So.
And we do have handouts. Be sure to pick one up for Shambhala, and I think we should take a field trip out there. So we'll
I think you should too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be a Q&A without a raffle giveaway, right? So if Melanie would grab the ticket so we can do that. And while she's doing that, let's take another question. Yes.
Even though some light has been shed on her recently, I don't think there's enough stories out in this world about Alma Hitchcock.
Oh, Alma was a wonderful, wonderful woman. I liked her very, very much. And we became very, very good friends. And I thought it was such a bizarre couple. but I went to their home for dinner often, and she was just charming, and she was a good friend. Good friend.
Do you still have that bird pin out for Hitchcock?
When we were on our way here, I said, I forgot the pin. I forgot the bird pin. But I have a tattoo on my shoulder of a bird. I'll show you. You want to see it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think you. I don't know. Can you see it? Can you see it? It's not the pin, but.
That was great. If you got a raffle ticket, Melanie's going to read out the first raffle. We've got a beautiful autographed Birds poster here. So let's see who this is going out to. Melanie?
914159.
Yay! A winner.
We got a winner. Come on down. There's a health tip, yeah. And if you haven't read this, this is one of the most beautiful memoirs ever written. Wonderful job on this. This is fantastic. So many entertaining stories and autographed. So who's taking this home tonight, Melanie?
914136.
Nobody. I'll take it home myself.
Yay, good. Here, let's do this. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Well, you're so welcome. And when you come out to the preserve, I have more books in our gift shop, just in case.
Thank you so much for a beautiful evening of stories and coming out to talk to us.
Oh,
It means
thank
the world.
you. This is
We'll never forget this. This is incredible.
Well, that's really lovely because I think you have a lot of people that come to talk to everybody. Anyway, thank you for being such a wonderful, caring audience and informed, and I'm impressed. And I look forward to seeing all of you at Shambhala. Please come, because it's really wonderful.
Our mayor, ladies and gentlemen.